This spell is shaped by these fingers, shaken out through these strings, as a ripple that echoes out forever, so I may shape all things. Calling out to my two lost souls, however far away you roam, know that I will always love you, and you are not alone. And to those who would harm you, I bear this simple word, may they repent and transform themselves, or fall upon their swords. That is an excerpt from So We May Shape All Things by Joel from Dream Mirror. Hello and welcome to Lux Occult. This is the podcast where we gleefully taunt the mundane, butcher the Latin and most other languages, and also discuss a variety of occult topics. I'm your host, Lux Estrada, and if you're hearing this, then this show, and magic for that matter, is for you, if you want it. There are a lot of different ways to be more free, and using magic or making space for a spiritual practice in your life can be one of them. As always, I don't speak for anybody but myself. Others can, will, and should disagree with me sometimes. How would we ever learn anything if we all agreed all the time after all? And like anybody should be, I am willing to revise my opinions based on new evidence. All right, so I'd like to start out by saying thank you for listening. I'm very lucky to have so many awesome people out there, listening and sharing their work and their magic and everything with me. So please keep it up. I really love hearing from you all. Today, I am stoked to bring you an interview I did a little while back with Joel, aka Dream Mirror on Instagram. I was fascinated when I first saw his stuff, which is a sort of mashup of like video, music, and magic. There's a bunch going on there. It's probably better to just look at it for yourself. Somebody made a comment that his work is beautiful magic, and I think that's a pretty apt description. So my guest is indeed a man of many talents. In addition to making these like amazing videos and this cool stuff that he conceives of and constructs, he's also a musician and songwriter and a visual artist, and I'm guessing there's maybe more too. I don't know. Not sure. One thing that comes up in this interview a lot, though, and it's kind of like central to Joel's ideas about this stuff, and I think in general, too, is the concept of feedback. Okay, so what is that? Feedback happens when outputs of a system are routed back as inputs, forming a chain of cause and effect that create a circuit or a feedback loop. So we talk about both feedback and old school technology in this one, so I thought it might be fun to mention that the first known artificial feedback device was a float valve for maintaining water at a constant level, and it was invented in 270 BC in Alexandria, Egypt. This device illustrates the principle of feedback in the following way. A low water level opens the valve, and the rising water then provides feedback into the system, closing the valve when the required level is reached. This then reoccurs in a circular fashion as the water level fluctuates. So thank you, Wikipedia, for that. These feedback systems are everywhere. Audio feedback is one example that comes up. Joel mentions also that he likes to think about numbers and like the inherent energies or properties of them. And I can totally relate to this. This is something I'm actually very into. I've been thinking about this stuff sort of in like relation to the number 3 a lot over the past year or so. But the whole like energies of numbers thing is, that's a rabbit hole that I could definitely go down for a while. We all have our little obsessions, whatever. Okay, so, but for instance, like you take the number 3, it's commonly associated with manifestation. So there's 2 components and their mixture, like parents and offspring, or like with time, as in like the past, the present, and the future. We've got the Holy Trinity, the triple goddess, the idea and like the symbol of Awen, the inspiration that flows. The common symbol we use to denote the elements are each a different triangle. The elements represent different ideas about like basic components of the material world, like how things manifest here on Earth or whatever. As Miranda Lundy notes in her excellent little book, Sacred Number, The Hidden Qualities of Quantities, the triangle is the first stable polygon and defines the first surface. In music ratios, 3-2 and 3-1 define the intervals of the first and its octave, the most beautiful harmonies after the octave itself, and the key to ancient tunings. Lundy also notes that 3 is the first triangular number, which is the number of items arranged into an equilateral triangle. So it's like when you take bottle caps or some other object and like arrange them into a triangle. You can think about like maybe stacking logs into a pyramid shape as a way to like get into the idea of thinking about triangular numbers. There's also the idea of the vesica Piscis, which comes up here. Lundy notes that when you make this shape, which is 2 like partly overlapping circles, triangles are immediately invoked. I've heard it said that every duality is a trinity, which the triangle, as it relates here to the vesica Piscis, seems to sort of hint at. In Tarot, I sometimes think that like the Magician, which is card number 1, and the High Priestess, which is card number 2, I sometimes think of these 2 cards as representing like these kind of dualities, which when combined gives way to the manifestation power of the Empress, card number 3. But anyway, the point I was trying to get to with all the triangles and the number 3 and all that shit is that with the triangle, we also have the first possibility for a feedback loop. We've talked before about the ubiquity, meaning that shit is everywhere, the ubiquity of complex nonlinear systems. These have the feature of the output being the new input too. So, I don't know, it's almost like reality is just sort of one big feedback loop. I don't know, everybody. Okay, so that's a good dose of esoterica for you. I'm going to talk about practical magic a little bit, as well as sharing a bit about my practice and what I've been up to later after the interview. I've also written up a very simple breakfast magic operation for you to try, which is sort of like a bare bones version of what I like to do, and I'll have that in the show notes for y'all. I'm also going to talk about the Green Mushroom Project I'm super excited about. We're constructing a shared astral space for that, so that's very cool. Okay, so anyway, Joel's current project with Dream Mirror, Desires in Motion, is very, very dope so far. The idea here is that he will release like a new video ritual every full moon for a year. And he kicked it off with a ritual for the Green Mushroom Project, which was really haunting and beautiful. And the second one, which is called So We May Shape All Things, it was like so chock full of synchronicities for me that I must admit, like I'm a little bit low-key obsessed with it. So I'm going to play the song from it at the end of the show. All right, so let's get into it here. Here is my interview with Joel of Dream Mirror. All right, dude, well, I really appreciate you being willing to come on my show and talk to me about this very cool project. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and like, you know, telling me and the listeners a little bit about yourself and about what you're up to and everything.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. My name's Joel. I guess I'm currently doing this project called Dream Mirror, which is just, how should I say, it's the latest way of sharing what I've been doing, which is kind of coming out of, I guess, sort of a long process of making noise music and then that transitioning into making more visual process. And over the last couple years, that's been really about studying video feedback. And yeah, that's kind of the core of what I'm working on now. Yeah, so in the past, I've used this process in live performance and in like video or art installation environments. And yeah, now it's just now we're just in the time of putting things on Instagram and doing online events.
Yeah, no, definitely. So could you give us like a little bit of like what is this kind of like, if we were going to go to like, let's say like a gallery or something where you had something like this set up, like what would we see?
Yeah, so right before the whole the plague season came upon us, I actually got the chance to do a couple of really awesome installations, and that was super. It was good timing, and it was also really satisfying thing. So my thing is my last installation. I'll just describe it really quickly, I guess.
Okay.
Was a room that had a few different things going on, but the main event was kind of had this 6-sided pyramid that had projections on the outside of it, and you would go inside it, and inside it I had the portal table set up, which is this table in front of me that has this morphing color pattern. In the middle of it has a circle cut out. And what's going on is there's a TV in it and there's a camera up above it that's looking into the television. So it's got a live video feedback loop, but kind of like hidden inside this mysterious looking table. So like a lot of like what I was doing with the installation was kind of like, since it's this like technological thing, but kind of like hiding that a little bit and making it a little more mysterious for a person who's approaching it, where they kind of sort of figure out what's going on and interact with it.
Yeah, I really like that idea of like kind of blending the lines between like, I don't know, maybe like art and magic and technology.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot there.
definitely. And that's like, yeah, in my opportunities to do like installations, that was definitely like a thing I was focusing on, was like leaning away from the fact that this is like a technical thing and like making it a little more mysterious and letting people kind of approach it and like interpret it however they did. And then I'll explain everything to anyone who wants to. I did a lot of explaining, but yeah, I also like just sort of seeing how people approach something that they don't entirely understand.
Yeah, definitely. So when you have installations, like is part of it for you like kind of like hanging out and like just kind of watching people's interactions?
Oh, totally. That's a really, it's like the best part is yeah, kind of hanging back and seeing how people approach it. And people have very different relationship to something. Like some people want to understand it in their mind, and some people want to get up close to it and experiment with it and like toy around with it, and then like come to an understanding like hands on. So yeah, that was definitely an interesting thing to observe.
Yeah, I really like that idea too. In some ways, it's sort of like the piece is never really done because like it continues to, I don't know, unfold as people interact with it. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's all like this live loop that can be changed and interacted with. So people are like playing with like putting things on the screen and moving things around and changing the angle that it's at. So there's like all these levels of like shaping this thing that's happening. And then it was, I guess, describing the situation is like, I've got this table that has a live video feedback loop going in it, and people will gather around it and play with it. And like, have like, we'll have like objects and sticks and things that you can put on there to like create patterns and shapes. And there's this live moving thing going on, and everyone and multiple people will sort of work collectively to play with it and explore it. So that was that was kind of the center point of a lot of my last installations.
Okay, very cool. Now, I read on your profile bio that you are a feedback worshiper. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So yeah, like I've been like just obsessed with this phenomenon for the past several years, and yeah, it's just like it's. Well, I shouldn't say just. I shouldn't use that word. That's a bad.
Well, I mean, it's all relative, right?
Yes, yes, but I at one point tried to get myself not to use that word
Oh, okay.
because it's a demeaning of, you know, belittling of things sort of word that people tend to use too much.
For sure.
But yeah, I catch myself. So feedback, it's like this life force, and it's like this map of like all kinds of things that are happening through all different levels of reality. Like we're all familiar with it in audio and like how it works, you know, and then but seeing it visually, it just opens up a whole other dimension of understanding. So like sort of discovering this like sort of opened up this door to like all the processes that like people understand as musicians or like as noise musicians. Like it just opens up that whole door in a visual way. where you're doing a lot of the same process, but like you're experiencing it visually.
That's really interesting. I'm almost thinking of like synesthesia now, actually.
Yeah, and there's some connection there, especially when I've gotten into my dabbling of like mixing audio signals into the feedback loop and like creating like pulsations that like trigger responses in it. And yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, that is. Could you talk a little bit more about like these different like tones and stuff like that, or the audio signatures that you mentioned?
Oh, well, I happened to like stumble upon a simple way of doing something that with one of my really old TVs that had this really old, beautiful thing that probably came out of a TV, like an old tech studio from the 70s or 80s, and it has multiple inputs on the back. And I managed to find out that like I could put an direct audio signal into one of the inputs while also running into the video input, and it would just, when you put audio into it at the right volume, you'd see these lines on the screen, right? And you can actually do this with any TV that's old. If you run your audio into a video source and crank it up, you can see these lines on the screen that are like directly representing the audio, and they're like really large for bass and tight together for treble. So you get into this using technology to see something that it's not even supposed to show. It was a weird little glitch that I stumbled upon that was very satisfying.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. Hell yeah.
So yeah, and like I don't know, my process has been a lot of like weirdly like stumbling upon things that I'm sure other people, have known about and done, but just sort of a weird process of discovery from just fucking around with like old things and old technology that is for the large part kind of discarded now. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes just opening strange doors that I had no idea were there.
Yeah, no, this process of like experimentation, I think, is pretty central to my practice too, and a lot of others that I've talked to. It's like just fuck around and figure out what happens. It's very cool.
Definitely.
The other thing I'm thinking of too is like this idea of like this kind of like, even though because technology moves so quickly, like I think you said, did you use the word forgotten to describe like this old, like these old monitors and shit like that? Like it's almost, there's something about like discarded technology that as an occultist is absolutely tantalizing, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I'm glad you touched on that, because that was something I wanted to talk about, is that like, yeah, like a lot of that's like definitely like a big central thing to like what I do is using stuff that's no longer valued, like using old TVs and old cameras that I pick up at thrift stores or find on the side of the road, and then like like finding new uses for them and using them in ways that they were never intended to be used. And like technology is changing all the time, and like older things were just more robust and like more manual and like weird. You had ways of manipulating them that were more hands-on.
Yeah, like vacuum tubes used to be a thing, right?
Exactly, and there's so much value in that. Like, and like being able to really have a hands-on understanding of how something works, and then being able to play with those parameters. Yeah, it's really beautiful, and like I want to, I guess, share value of those things and appreciate the things that are discarded.
Yeah, I think there's something really beautiful about that too. I mean, like, I don't know, there's something about like appreciating something for what it is, and then also like to be able to see like a new potential for it too. Like, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely been sort of a core of my practice in audio and video stuff. It's kind of always been there. It's been a bit of a scavenger.
So what first got you like into this line of experimentation?
Getting into noise music like over a decade ago is really like what it is. Discovering a weird art gallery that had strange performances that I would just go to every one I could possibly go to, because they were always fascinating and frightening and never knew what to expect. And from there, like, and this is all really connected, so I'm sort of searching for my words here, but like experimental music is, I feel, for a lot of people a very magical process, because it's usually, well, it's different for everyone, right? And there's no rules to it. and there's no set formula, but to be experimental is like inherently like a process of discovery and like searching for what you're trying to create and like seeking out like what fascinates you and how to explore it. So, I mean, there's obviously like a big connection between sort of the fringe and experimental forms of music and the occult. And, you know, some people lean into that more than others, and I guess I'm one of those.
Very cool. Now, do you use your pieces like in your? You don't have to answer this, obviously, but I'm just curious. Like in an occult practice, like is this part of your deal?
Totally. And that's like a thing that I've been really like trying to embrace a lot in the last, I guess, sort of more recently. I've been sort of focusing on it more because there's so many different levels of something. But I feel like as my sort of magical practices have become more focused and more intentional, and then it all connects, and it's like been really informing like the way I approach doing artistic practices because it's all connected. It's like it's a matter of deciding what your intention is and then setting up parameters to work through and coming up with something. And it's all a process of feedback. It's because it's like as I become more focused, then I create more focused things. As I create more focused things, I get better ideas of what it is I'm after. So like, you know, our lives, our brains, the way we operate is a feedback loop. And the more we learn to control that and manipulate it, then that's like pretty much the magical process right there.
Yes, very well said. I totally agree. Okay, so would you like to take a bibliomancy break?
Okay, we're there already. Awesome. Yeah, totally. Sure.
All right, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, Eris. My question is, am I going to be able to repair my truck, and can I get more years out of my beautiful old chariot, or is now the time to buy a new vehicle? And
Oh, a difficult crossroads. Okay, yeah. Go ahead and flip your coin.
So I feel like it's a question that should have some distinctive answer. All right, flipping my coin. I got tails.
All right. And do you have a 12-sided die?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, awesome.
All right, and a roll. 11.
All right, it is going to be from Chicago Poems by Carl Sandberg. Let me go find it. I'll be right back here.
All right.
All right. Oh, Eris. Is it time for Joel to replace his truck, or will it be worth it to repair it now? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's see here. A sphinx. Closed mouth. You sat 5,000 years and never let out a whisper. Processions came by, marchers asking questions you answered with gray eyes never blinking, shut lips never talking. No one croak of anything you know has come from your cat grouch of ages. I am one of those who know all you know, and I keep my questions. I know the answers you hold.
Great.
Thank you, Eris. Well,
interesting. That almost sounds like someone doesn't want to tell me.
Yeah, I'm also getting this like image of your truck as this like sphinx, like this like monument of some kind.
I was also I have referred to it as a chariot. Yeah, no, that's really interesting because it is old and it is something that people notice and ask questions about.
I am one of those who know all you know, and I keep my questions. I know the answers you hold.
Hmm.
Maybe it's like you know what the right answer is. Why are you asking me? I don't know.
Maybe. Well,
Interesting. Well, do you think that answers your question? We can investigate further if you like.
yeah, I'll take it. It's I think it's a. Yeah, I think I need to do the thing that I need to do, which is fuck with it a good bit more, and that's probably what it's telling me.
Well, there's the thing of like, if you already know what you have, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. We can talk about this later. We could talk about vehicle maintenance later.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like to ask people at this point, like, do you have any thoughts about divination or randomness or anything like that? Is this something? I'm sure that's something you've probably considered. Like, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, as far as divination goes, I guess I mess with tarot a good bit. Um, and it's interesting. I don't know. There with divination, I don't know. I haven't like made it like a very consistent like aspect where I like do things on a regular basis. But there are definitely like you develop relationships to certain symbols and they come up and there's synchronicities and I guess like one thing I think would be interesting to share is that yeah, there are weird moments that happen. Like I had a moment once at when I had this installation set up and it was like a late night and I was like messing with some sigils and stuff through the portal for like a while and like I had a moment where I was just sort of in the zone and I felt like I needed to draw a tarot card and I should describe this a little better because I've got like this old piece of equipment that like takes like close up like almost magnoscopic video of like objects. So I was
Oh, cool.
so I would do a lot of like throwing tarot cards on this thing and then mixing them into the video to like put symbols into these morphing images, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I was in this zone. I was like, oh, I need to draw a tarot card, and I went and drew a tarot card, and I drew the Six of Cups, and the Six of Cups looked visually like exactly like the pattern that I had going on the screen at the time.
All right.
So yeah, I feel like there are these places that people can get to in their artistic practice where like things just connect and click in a really beautiful way and like your hair stands up on end a little bit.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know?
like, holy shit, that's just too perfect,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And yeah, there's no like simple way of telling somebody how to get there or like knowing how to get there yourself, but I do think that if the more you get familiar with certain feelings, certain zones that you get yourself into, then you can, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like maybe it's like the more often you wander there on accident, maybe the easier it is to try to find your way back.
definitely.
But usually it's by wandering on accident. Maybe you just get better at accidentally finding things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I just kind of wanted to share that because it was like a moment where like something just connects, and I don't know. Those moments are out there, and I feel like everybody has them.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so that's a great segue to something that I wanted to ask you about, which was you made this really cool piece for the Green Mushroom Project. And I was hoping we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Green Mushroom Project is an awesome idea, and it totally like resonated with like a lot of things that are going on inside my head. Yeah, it's sort of looking for a focus and a direction to like want to put out like healing positive energy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I made a so like since I was already in this have been in this practice of like making sigils and then like mixing them into these moving visual patterns. I decided to do that with Green Mushroom Project, but also kind of like, I don't know, as I played with it, it kind of like created this whole like little narrative piece that I had to put together.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot there. I definitely want to ask you more about it. But yes, definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was having a bunch of technical trouble uploading the second part of it, but I put it up on YouTube and I put a link to it underneath the first part.
Hell yeah, and I will definitely have those linked in the show notes for this, so everybody can definitely take a look at them. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, because what resonated to me is that the mushroom shape, right,
Mm-hmm.
is a shape that I'm very familiar with in doing this sort of pattern work. Because when you take a spiral and you put it a little bit off center and then you give it a mirror effect and split it in half, you create this shape that's like the tree or the mushroom, this like very universal pattern. And that's something that I've played with a lot and used before. So like seeing that was your symbol, it's like, oh, I'm familiar with that and I know how to do that in like a moving light sort of way. So I really need to do that.
It's so cool.
And yeah, the second part of the video actually gets into more of that, exploring that shape a bit more. Whereas the first part, I was also sort of putting other symbolism for myself in there because it kind of it coalesced into like me designing this whole process for myself to make sigil pieces that every month, and so I sort of put a lot of the designs behind that and the intention behind that into the first piece, sort of laying out a path for myself.
Yes, very cool. I did want to ask you, there was this really beautiful post that you had shared a while back, and it was like a drawing of like the moon phases and stuff, and it was hilarious. This hilarious caption of like, "Behold my plans," you know, like very Bond villainy vibes. Like, I wanted to ask, how are your plans going?
Good.
Hell yeah.
I mean, we're not very far in yet, so I haven't had a chance to screw up. But yeah, having an artistic practice and having a magical practice are pretty much the same thing. You have to have consistency. You have to set up a pattern for yourself to work within, and it's really important. And that's something that's like a lesson that I'm facing. And yeah, so I designed this to be that every new moon, I construct a symbol for a desire, a thing that I want to work on. And by the full moon, I want to have that in some completed form that I can share as an art form with the world. And yeah, it's because we need to give ourselves structure to grow within. And it can start out simply, but like holding yourself up to a thing that you say you're going to do is like the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one basic way of working your will, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah. Yeah, the idea of like working with the moon, it's a classic idea. It's classic like structure. It definitely resonates with me, and I think a lot of other people too. If you're just starting out, and that's, you know, if you're looking for some structure, that could be a great, you know, kind of energy to play with. I mean, the traditional thing is that you start projects at the new moon and you finish them at the full moon, and then the full moon to the new moon is a good time of like getting rid of stuff or dissolution, or so just like that very basic idea could be a really accessible way for people to, you know, kind of incorporate some of this bigger structure into their practice. So hell yeah.
Definitely. And it's like all of nature operates on rhythms and patterns. And I feel like it's really important to embrace that and realize that we're a part of that, and that, like, I don't know, there's a lot of people in like the magical kind of community that say like time isn't real and stuff like this, you know. And
I think I've actually said that a number of times,
yes.
but I mean it in a very nuanced way.
I understand that. Yeah, it's great. But I'm more looking for a more practical approach. Where I'm telling myself, because I naturally feel that way. And I naturally will ignore time and drift through it in the most peculiar ways. And before you know it, you find yourself being much older than you ever expected you'd be. And yeah, it's taken me a lot of strange places, but I guess I'm coming to a point where I have to embrace like all these. I have to like understand time and like wrap my head around it and like work within these patterns.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Like, and when I say time isn't real, I shouldn't. That's a very reductive way of saying what I'm actually meaning. Is that it's. I don't think it's actually as we experience it. Is what I mean.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more to it, but in the primary dimension that we most often exist in, we're kind of like swimming down this one-way river.
That's how it seems.
So it seems.
It's hard to say what's actually happening, but that's sure how it seems.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's, I'm not saying that you can't move around the currents in some other directions, but what I am saying is that discipline is really important. And this is about me and like the things I've been making myself confront, right? Is that like if I hold myself up to a certain simple set of expectations, then I'm going to accomplish these things. Like if I do this thing I said I'm going to do, then I'm going to have 12 complete things done at the end of the year. So yeah, it's more about setting goals and holding yourself up to them is kind of just a thing that I'm.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think there's a lot there too in terms of like, as you touched on before, this idea of building confidence by this recursive action of, this feedback loop.
Yeah. So I guess that was just sort of my practical advice I wanted to put out there to other people listening.
Yeah, I think it's good advice for sure. Once you find something that like, fits with you, it's a good idea to like, I really like the way that you've contextualized it in like God, I really need to fucking quit using that word. I'm so sorry, everybody listening, for how often I say contextualize. I'm trying to move away from it. Apologies. But framing it in such a way as like you're kind of looking forward and like kind of a little bit more of like a big picture way.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool because like all of the fucked up things that have been going on and probably even before, I think that it is really easy to be kind of caught in this like reactionary or reactive like mindset, or even as you said before, like not really like appreciating the passage of time. Like, like every day is a fucking gift, right? Like, I mean, like, I feel like that's cool to like, or maybe it's not. Maybe every day is a horrible punishment. However you like to think about it. I mean, I feel like that's almost the same fucking thing. But like, I don't know. It's whatever extreme you're into. Yeah, it doesn't need to like. Sorry, this is really preachy, but yes, enjoy every day. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's no, I'm right with you. And it's that yeah, I guess just valuing it and realizing that it's this and it's happening and you've got to make the most of what you've got. And also if you make a plan and you make your plan incremental and step by step, then you can make incredible things happen. If you see your path moving through the future. Because if you don't see it happening, you just kind of drift around, then cool things will happen if you're drifting through good currents. But yeah, it's about taking control and taking agency of being like, I'm working on directing the path that I want to move down, right?
Hell yeah, focus on the fucking path if you want to get where you're going. Totally.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess that's just my thing this year because I've been somebody who drifts between all kinds of realms of reality for a long time, and I haven't been somebody who's structured my life very much. It's
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be something to be said for like taking that time to like do this like exploration and like, this kind of fact finding or whatever, like picking up whatever things you can find and then doing this kind of work of really like organizing all of that and like bringing it down to earth in like a way that other people can appreciate. So yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, so in the piece that you produced for Green Mushroom, there is a quote from the Bible from Revelations 2:22. And there was like such a strong synchronicity for me there, actually. Like that imagery had actually come up in some path working that I'd been doing for the Ankh system. And I thought that was a really fascinating thing. I was just curious if you could comment on that.
Yeah, so there, I'm just saying it by memory, but it's talking about the tree of life and saying that there's um, this river and it has the tree of life growing by it.
Yeah, it's like the river of like the promised city, like the
Mhm.
river like flows down the middle and then like this it's like lined with trees
Yeah,
that like grow a different fruit, like they
yeah,
grow 12 fruits.
They grow a different fruit every month. Also,
Yeah, and then the fucking leaves are like medicine that will heal the nations,
yeah,
which I thought was really dope. I mean that whole chapter is hella metal and very cool.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm someone who grew up in the church world, and yeah, the Book of Revelations was the best part of it. And
Cool.
but yeah, the like the fact that there were these weird images there that like you never quite understood what they were. They're just really mysterious, and like the tree of life as like this strange universal force where you're sort of wondering like what it really is. And then that like in like the video process I've like discovered this thing, that this shape that happens that just like is this tree. Yeah, it seemed very fitting. uh, so because I'm trying to produce a different fruit every month.
Yeah, no, hell yeah, that's really fucking dope. I love it.
So that imagery about the tree of life has been really something that's been intriguing. I've been fascinating. And I've also been really into the Book of Enoch recently, and the tree of life is described there also. Like at one point, like Enoch is being taken through the heavens by an angel and going to all these different far corners of the heavens and seeing these strange visions of portals where good and evil energy blow through. And at one point, he sees this tree and is like just completely fascinated by it and asking the angel, "What is this beautiful tree?" And yeah, it's a pattern in nature. It's this like spiral fractal growth pattern that is like deeply seated inside nature, that like we recognize as like a life force and like a beautiful thing inherently. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of I've been exploring a lot of these like shapes and designs and patterns that are focused around certain numbers, and they just have energies inherent to them, I feel. So yeah, working with this growing spiral of a tree or a mushroom, like it's a really beautiful symbol.
Yeah, I love this idea of like we've talked about this on the show a little bit, like, you know, this idea of like looking at things through filters or maps or whatever. Like we're always doing this whether we want to or not. And like to intentionally take something like a concept of a number and like run it through a different filter and say like, well, what's that experience like? Like what does that do?
Mm-hmm.
And then to recognize that pattern is something that you're already familiar with is really fucking exciting, right? Like
Yeah, definitely. Because there are all these weird, there are all these patterns in life and in nature, and that like manifest in our lives in all these different ways. And I feel like as we get deeper understandings of them, we can understand things better and like find a way to like navigate through it better. Um, which I guess like sort of brings me back to feedback loops, right? Because like a feedback loop, like looking at it, it becomes this like pattern that moves and morphs and forms different shapes depending on like the angle that you align it to. But it takes like a lot of like care and steadiness to like make it into something beautiful. Yeah, that there are like these certain energy patterns that move through all different things, and yeah, like getting familiar with how feedback patterns work is interesting because it's like there's something that can be smoothed out and aligned to make really beautiful patterns. And I feel like our brains work really similarly, where there's like a lot of like chaotic information like looping back and forth, and it takes like intentional work to kind of like align things in a way that becomes ordered and beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. The practice of meditation is so important, everybody. Just saying, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, there is a very evocative sigil that I noticed in the first part of the green mushroom piece that you produced. I think that I noticed the middle of it had like the Scorpio constellation.
Oh,
Am I right about that?
very good. You are very astute.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I have it right here, actually. Yeah, that's sort of something that, as this, and sort of in my personal work, that's kind of something that a new thing that I've been working with. Yeah, the Scorpio constellation, and it has like a language written around it that I made up, but it's just sort of a dedication to a sort of a personal deity that I'm becoming connected to, which is Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, a star that's at the center of the Scorpius constellation.
Okay. Fuck yeah. I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so that's something that's unfolding, but I don't know, had a feeling like I just wanted to put it in there as a dedication to her.
Well, yeah, it's a powerful energy for sure. I know Crowley talks a lot about it. Definitely, very cool. Would you like to talk any more about Antares?
It's a red giant star that's at the center of the Scorpio constellation, like right in the middle of the body, and it's pretty visible to the naked eye. And I don't know, I just sort of like, I'm not even sure how it really came up, but I think I was looking through some book about stars, and the name really struck me. And then I looked into mythology around it, and all the mythology around it was just really beautiful about various scorpion goddess characters. And so, yeah, it's just been an energy that I've been beginning to have a relationship with that's, I think, still developing.
Hell yeah, very cool. I love it. Well, I felt like there is definitely something spicy about the piece, and that makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
All right. Do you have any, I know we've touched on this before, like, but do you have any other like general thoughts about the intersection of art and magic and like the process of creation?
Yeah, I think that if you realize that it's magic and you embrace it and you lean into that, it goes way better. I feel like in the art world, there's a lot of like intellectualism and like a lot of like people that just try to like lean the other way and like make things, I don't know, really dry and stupid. And really, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like in the art world, people have a weird way of like trying to follow trends and like push themselves away from the things that are really inspiring to them. Whereas, like, if you look at it from a magical perspective, what you're after is just purely what really turns you on the most.
Yeah.
And that's like what you should be pursuing. And like when something gives you a real fucking tingle and like makes your hair stand on end, then that's like you're in the right place. Yeah. And the more connected the two, the better it is.
Yeah, and so this is something that I think about sometimes. Like, so in Ramsey Dukes' book, S.O.T.B.M.E, he talks about like the difference, you know, the different kind of lenses or like maps we could use, like, to look at things in the context of like art or science or religion or magic. And like, I sometimes wonder if I've ever made any art or if all I ever do is magic because I don't know. It's an interesting distinction too, and like I don't know if there is actually a line, or obviously there's not like a hard line and whatever semantics. But like talking to some other artists about this stuff, and actually I don't even know if I consider myself an artist. I like to make shit, but I don't know if I like to use that label or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just this idea of like this like separation of yourself like from it, and that seems kind of like foreign to me because like the process to me is more about like you were saying, that kind of like raw experiential thing, So maybe I have no fucking idea what it's like to make art at all. I don't know.
That's great. All right, so like I guess the big difference is in a way is that like magic is something that doesn't necessarily need an audience. It could be just about you, right? But like doing art is something where like in some way you're probably going to share it with other people.
That's a fucking excellent distinction. Oh my god, thank you. Clears it right up for me.
Right? Okay, so that's pretty much my whole definition.
I'm so glad you're here. I've been like worried about this shit.
So yeah, so the tricky thing is like magic, like you're doing it for yourself, right? And it can totally be an artistic practice, but like if it's really personal, then like maybe you're not sure if you want to share it with other people, and like maybe you don't need to. But then like art is, yeah, you know that you're going to share it with other people. So like the problem with art sometimes is that people think about the result of like what they're giving to the others more so than like what they're trying to create for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you get caught up thinking about what other people want you to make, then you tend to, in my opinion, then you're like sort of playing into a market of some sort, and it usually loses some spark. It's like when people really do the thing that they want to make for themselves, but then they share it with other people, then that's the thing I want to see, is what it comes down to, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. Another thing I've struggled with is like this concept between like the process of creation, which is sort of what I think you're talking about. And again, this is like a semantical distinction that might not actually be meaningful at all. But then there's also this idea of generation, like procedural generation. Like if maybe if we're just following trends and we want to like make pieces that will sell easily and be popular, we can kind of just follow this pattern or program and produce these things that we know will be fit this, market. But is that really creating? Like I feel like there's a distinction there somewhere that I can't quite put my finger on.
Yeah, and it gets kind of vague. But yeah, for me, it's like if I'm doing a thing that I know people will like and buy, then that's just work. And that's great. Work is good, and I like it when work is artistic, but it's different than like real art is. Yeah, it's a process where you're seeking out to create something that you want to create. But then there's also like the intersection of like creating something that you want other people to experience.
And yeah, and I mean, artists do have a lot of power in terms of like, I don't know, creating ideas about how the future might go, I guess is one way of saying it.
Absolutely.
And so like there is a sort of inherent responsibility that comes with the agency of creativity, of like having whatever creative outlet. Like there is a sort of responsibility in that too. And like how much of that needs to play into the thinking too. I mean, I don't know, right? Like,
oh, totally. There is like a responsibility because we're creating the ideas that are shaping the future, right? We're all like writing the stories that can unfold.
mm-hmm.
So I know that's a thing you've talked about before on here, and yeah, it's a really important thing. And I mean, I think that's where I really want to encourage people to like work on seeing futures and like actualizing the futures that they want. Yeah, and that's a really difficult thing right now. But it's there. We've got to dream the futures that we want to live in.
Yeah. And I mean, every fucking shitty hardship also comes with a little nice silver lining of opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
I know it's a platitude. I'm sorry. It's true.
Yeah. So anyhow, I'm all about. I don't know. I believe in community. I believe in like fucking beating the system by people working together, and it's hard and it's difficult, but I think that that's like what we got to do.
And it is hard and it is difficult, but like it can also be other things too. It can also be fun. It can also be invigorating. It can also be joyful,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that like it's a lot of it's up to us, like what we want to bring to this work. Like this idea of like looking down the long run, like we're not going to be able to like wave our hands and change like, but really like looking down the long run and approaching things from a sort of more systemic point of view and saying like, it doesn't like, let's try to make it like as enjoyable as possible. Like it doesn't need to suck. Like improving things, like doing, I don't know, like working towards social justice. You don't need to be angry. You don't need like, unless that's helping you, but like you don't need that. Like all you need to do is do the thing. And like maybe, I don't know, I just have so many thoughts about like ways that we could improve, like I don't know, man. this kind of like approach to like how we're doing things, like because the anger and all of that, it's so exhausting and it burns you out. And like I feel like if we took a different approach, we could be so much more fucking effective.
Well, yeah. So this is a great conversation because this is about sort of the intersection of like magic and culture, right? And like, so like, I think that like we need to do things from a place of honesty and like realness. Like, for instance, like mutual aid, like I've done Food Not Bombs for years and years, and like doing like any kind of activism work, people shouldn't approach it from a place of guilt or like obligation. You should just approach it because it feels good and like you like it and you get something out of it. And that's like a thing that I would always say is like you know, this is solidarity, not charity. And also like I'm doing this for myself because I enjoy it, and it's not because I'm like trying to do something good for other people that are like less fortunate than me. It's like,
yeah, I think that keeping that central is what keeps it honest.
It's like we're all the same. We all have needs. We all have abilities, and like I do what I can do. You do what you can do, and like you know, we all can take care of each other. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that going on, and like a lot of it gets overlooked because people, you know, tend to focus on conflict.
Sure, and when I said earlier, like about the anger, like I'm speaking from, you know, like the place of this shit gets me so fucking angry that it affects me in a way that I am no longer productive. So that's the way that I'm trying to approach it, is saying like, how can I like get past this emotional response and actually fucking do something about it, right? Like instead of just being reactive and really when you're in that state of being like reactive and stuff, you're opening yourself up to being taken advantage of by, you know, every time there's a opportunity, there's going to be some jerks out there that are going to use that to whatever dumb ends, you know, that's always going to be a fucking thing. So that's always something we need to watch out for too, unfortunately. So yes.
Yeah. So absolutely. Like, operating out of a place of like not having an emotional, like a strong emotional reaction, but like,
or like channeling that into a way where it actually helps you, or like, yeah.
It's about like force follows form, and like you have to sort of create a pattern for like energy to move through. So like you have to create a better system, you know, like if you create a better way for things to operate, then things can go that way instead of like having to go the one way that they have been.
Yeah, no, totally. And like that better system starts with you, because all systems are connected in some way, and the little system that is you.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you do these things in the microcosm of your own life, then they do have an effect in the on other people's lives. And
yeah, no, and this is an idea that's in a lot of Eastern philosophy. You see it in like, you know, chaos theory and shit. So we're not just making it up.
Yeah. No, we're not inventing something new. That's for sure. But there's lots of good things that have been hidden from us and obstructed from us for a very long time. So
yes. And I will say one more thing about what I understand. I'm not like really that into astrology, but since I've been like reading Crowley and stuff, it's comes up. It's like this idea of like, you know, the Scorpio energy too is about like the deeps, right? Like uncovering secret knowledge, secret power and stuff. And like the idea of like starting from your own, like, you know, personal microcosm, like that's all of those things, I think if you can kind of tie those together and work from there, then you're in excellent shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to like ritually look deep into yourself and like look for the things that truly like fascinate you and inspire you, and seek that out and explore it. Like I feel like a lot of people waste a lot of time in life sort of running away from or avoiding the things that they're really fascinated by.
Yeah. Why do you think that might be?
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I'm just sort of thinking about my own life story a little bit, where there's like a lot of things that I do that I just never thought had any real value in the world, you know? And so, like, the things that were like really fascinating to me were just kind of like these sort of things that were just hobbies off to the side, or kind of like things that I sort of secretly did, but I didn't have the faith that that could be like the center point of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to encourage that in people, is that like to really embrace the things that really fascinate them.
Definitely. Actually, that reminds me a lot of why I named the show the way that I did. It's like there is this hidden light that everybody has, and like maybe you've been distracted by it or whatever, but like finding a way to fucking embrace it and like really lean into that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yes.
General positivity. You were born.
Well, yeah, no, this has been awesome. I have so much to think about now. Do you have any like questions for me, or like any like thing that I didn't ask about that you want to talk about, or anything like that?
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. I'm trying to think about, because I definitely had things I wanted to say that maybe I didn't. I don't know. I feel like I wanted to avoid like all this general talk and like say some specific things, but it's all right.
It can be hard. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. I think we usually talk about like general ideas, but I also want to like encourage more practical talk about like real like nitty gritty, like how people make things work. Because like there's so much people talking about general philosophy of like the mindset and like the belief system of like what you're doing, but I also want to like really kind of encourage people to like share like their real detailed processes of like how they figure things out and like what their rituals are. So I guess I don't know. I'm curious. Like I'll just go ahead and say like I've been doing pentagram rituals every day, and that's like been changing my life incredibly. And like I feel like there's so much value in like figuring a thing out, trying something out for yourself, and then like designing it the way that works for you, and like sort of starting with a blueprint that exists, but like reshaping it to fit like the way your mind operates is like really important. And I guess I would just really encourage people to experiment with that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good advice for sure.
Because there's a lot of like practical exercise that just can really help you make your processes work better. And like that's kind of what these rituals do, is they help you compartmentalize like different parts of your mind and focus on different areas. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm curious what like you have your thing that you do, and you know there's degrees that we share, and there's degrees that we keep private. It's you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of like, I guess praxis for me, like I do candle magic every day. Like that's something that I do every day. You know, sigil magic and candle magic. That's just kind of part of like my morning routine now, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's one nitty gritty thing that people could. I don't know if I do it the same way as others. I'm guessing it's probably pretty similar, but like I have an alphabet of desire, and I'll like write some shit on a candle and burn it while I meditate or whatever I'm doing. It depends on what I've got going on, but that is definitely something that I do every day.
Yeah. That's sweet. So do you usually like choose a different color depending on like the day, or
I do. I actually have a few different colors that I go to depending on like the energy I'm trying to bring to the thing, you know?
Yeah.
The ones I'm working with right now are white and yellow and red.
Awesome.
And I also have green and pink. I do a green one every Friday now for the Green Mushroom Project, and we're doing that at midnight Eastern time on Fridays, in case anybody wants to join us.
All right, tune in.
Hell yeah.
See you on the astral plane.
That's right. Oh, dude, Joel, this has been super cool. I really appreciate you taking the time to like explain this very cool project that you have going on. When everything, I was gonna say back to normal, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Like, but when it
back to normal.
well, like yeah, like when things change in a way that allows us to do things like this with ease again, I would love to fucking see one of your installations and all of this shit. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. No, I would love to find a way to share this type of thing with people in the real world, because I'm just not that great at the virtual world. But
We're learning.
I'm working on
This is
embracing it.
it's interesting. Like this is new territory to play in. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Make the best of it.
And it is important, and it's something that I've been like putting off. But yeah, it's about reaching out to a broad network. Like I discovered you completely by accident because I was searching for occult podcasts, and like the image of the rainbow and the chaos sky was like, oh, that one's real. Yay. That one's not bullshit. So we're in this time of like just sort of seeking each other out and like making connections and like sharing information. But yeah, hopefully we'll all see each other in the real world someday.
Absolutely. Well, and if not, we always have Instagram or whatever evil corporate platform we're using.
Yeah. Or we'll all get much better at astral projection and actually like hang out in other dimensions.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just started reading Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Anyway. So where can people find your work?
So I have an Instagram, which is Dream Mirror. It's sort of spelled out symmetrically, like dream.
I love it.
Dream Mirror with like a D on the end of it. Yeah, real quick, because that name actually happened because I was like in the basement listening to like Mormon music tapes on a 4-track backwards. And
wait, what? No, see, okay, when I asked you how you got into this, that would have been a cool thing to
mention. But yeah, the name actually was because I had this trash bag full of like old Mormon cassette tapes, and I was listening.
Okay, as you do.
I was listening to some on a 4-track, so I was listening to it backwards, working on something, and it started saying, and like there's a song playing, this nice pretty song, and then I start hearing the words that mirrored. It's saying the word mirrored over and over again. So I flip the tape around and play it forwards, and it's saying dream. So it was this cute little lullaby, and I realized that the words were a mirror image of each other. So
very cool.
That's where that came from.
No, dude, I love
side story.
These are some of the ways that I find my esoteric understandings as well. You never know where you'll get your information from, so right. Be creative.
Hell yeah.
All right, Joel, I really appreciate the time and everything. This has been very fun.
Hell yeah, I'm so glad that you want to talk to me. It's been awesome.
Well, I appreciate it, and yes, I'm sure this is not the last we ever heard from you.
All right, hope not.
All right, thanks again to Joel. Don't forget to check out his stuff on Instagram at DreamMirror. It's a very cool and legal way to literally see music. Okay, so this idea of feedback was a big theme in today's show, obviously. Another thing that's been coming up a lot, just like in general, and especially as it relates to the green mushroom stuff, is this idea of like feedback and artistic inspiration. I was actually just talking about this the other day with Yay Tolls, but the stuff that people make can inspire us, which can cause us to create things or take actions which inspire others. I think that there is sometimes this idea that pursuing creative work is somehow selfish, but I think that this kind of idea of like feedback shows that that might not actually be the case. I don't know. So this reminds me of a quote from Grant Morison's The Invisibles, which we are reading right now for our book club on Faith Blind Council podcast Discord server. Check it out, fun stuff. This is from Arcadia Part 1, and it's Shelley talking to Lord Byron about creating poetry for the benefit of the future. The utopia I speak of lies in the imagination. It is not built, it grows. It grows in the hearts of men who love freedom. Our words must draw the maps of this new world so that others may find their way there. It's good shit. I don't know. I like it. It's super interesting reading it for the first time, The Invisibles, like with having like the context of it being a hypersigil and stuff. And if hypersigils is a topic that you're curious about, check out the episode of this show where my brother and I discuss it. And I would also recommend the book Weaving Fate by Aiden Wachter. And you can listen to my interview with Aiden that I did a little while back on this show. It's a good one. Check it out. Anyway, Joel mentioned how a lot of his process has been about like sort of stumbling on things, which I totally relate to. Many of the things I do are the result of me having like discovered them by like acting on a weird impulse, maybe. Not to say that I'm like overly impulsive. Maybe instinct or intuition is a better fit here. Who cares though? If it's like working for you, who cares, right? But there is an element of playfulness that I feel can be very important to magical thought and magical work. And it's like something that a lot of kids seem to have, but that gets sort of trained out of us along the way. If you get the impulse to do something like out of the normal and it's not going to hurt you or other people, like, I don't know, do it. Do weird shit. Listen to Old Mormon 8 tracks backwards. Talk to your shampoo. Follow rabbit holes. Scream at a storm. I don't know. Speaking of doing weird shit, as promised, here I'll share just a little bit about what I've been up to lately with my stuff. One thing I've been playing a lot with in a new way, because I've been into it for like a long time, but is dance. So I've always sort of enjoyed it. It's a good, way to relax and exercise, and it's, been the component of many magical operations stretching back throughout time. But lately I've been concentrating on the idea of using it as a way to create like a little feedback loop for myself. If I dance in the same place to the same song using the same gestures, and it can be like sort of like a bridge, right? Like in the state of consciousness, like which results here, like this particular like flavor of gnosis or whatever, I've noticed that the like air starts to feel a little bit thicker and like the ground feels like a little softer, like that there's less and less of like a difference between that. And then there's sort of like this idea that you can sort of like feel you dancing with yourself, right? Like as you're kind of concentrating on like thinking about you doing it in the past and in the future. I don't know if that makes any sense, whatever. I tried. But from like an experiential standpoint, I might almost classify it as like an extreme form of like situational awareness. I don't know. Interesting stuff though. I've been getting some surprising and fun results, which is really exciting. Another thing which is really exciting is how many people, like Joel, have been participating in the Green Mushroom Project, which is a large-scale group working that you can be a part of if you want to. It's designed to help us connect and heal as we regain ground. And if you want to be a part of that, you can do so by working with the Green Mushroom Sigil to bring about healing and repair. There will be some links about the project in the notes for the show. You can also follow the Instagram account for the Green Mushroom Project at hyphosigil and the hashtag #TheGreenMushroom. All right, so we've recently begun constructing a shared astral space, including both like a tavern and a temple, and a bunch of other stuff. Thank you so much for everybody on the Green Mushroom Council who joined us for our first brainstorming session on that. It was really cool working in that way, and I think that we found some really dope stuff to put in there. The Green Mushroom Council can be found on the Faith Blind Council Discord server, which is where I like to hang out on the internet. Shout out to everybody there. Joy, be the sandwich. Also check out the Faith Blind Council podcast and Unearthing Paranormalcy podcast. So we're going to be continuing to work on fleshing out our ideas of the astral space, and then I will put together a guided meditation for people to use to like kind of come and take a tour and kind of start. It'll be like an introduction to like, playing with the space. I've also, as I mentioned earlier, written up a simple breakfast magic operation, which you can use as is or as a template to build on. This will be included in the show notes along with some pictures, so check that out. It's a combination of sigil, candle, and egg magic, but there's a lot of different things that you could incorporate, other elements. You could use the magical associations of herbs and spices, incorporate like blessed salt, use color or geometry or like whatever symbolic stuff you're into to add some extra magical flavor. I have a bunch of pictures of breakfast magic and other shit on the show's Instagram account at Lux Occult Pod, and also at The Mimetic Disease, which is my art and magic mashup project. So yeah, you could check those out for some more ideas. Also, don't forget to check out the Occult Confessions podcast and their series on chaos magic. You can hear an episode featuring me and Aiden from the Church of Nothing, and that will be coming out pretty soon. Also, check out the Dark Pool podcast, which is a very fun spin-off project of Occult Confessions. There's actually a lot of thematic crossover with stuff we talked about today too. Audio feedback and the occult and everything. And you can hear me talk about ritual and theater on this show with Dr. Rob from Occult Confessions as well. If for some reason you want to hear more of my stuff, check out the Ad Hoc History podcast. Me and my brother Asher, who you might remember from the Explaining Chaos Magic to My Brother series, talk about history and the human motivations that might lie behind these epic stories. Alright, thank you so much for listening. You all really are the best. Like, I'm super fucking lucky. Please keep sending me your thoughts, questions, comments, and arcane revelations. You can find me luxoccultpod@gmail.com or message me on Instagram at luxoccultpod. And as I said, you can also check out my stuff at The Mimetic Disease. If you like this show, you can thank me by leaving a good review and some stars, telling a friend, or perhaps a stranger, I don't know. You can also thank me by doing some magic to improve your life and the lives of those around you. Alright, so I'm going to leave you with the song from Dream Mirror, Desires in Motion Ritual 2. So Joel let me know that when he wrote this, it was like sort of one of those times when things just like flowed, and he was like left with something which I think is incredibly fucking beautiful. Not only does he do the vocals on this track, but he also like plays the banjo and violin and keyboard and everything else about it in the video, so it's pretty fucking impressive. Anyway, this song was put together on a 4-track tape deck, so it's very lo-fi. There's a lot of feedback and static and stuff, which I think adds a lot of texture and interest. This is my taste though. So when you watch the video ritual, which you should definitely do, there is an audio image that reminds me of like an initial like cell division. And it made me wonder, is life a song? Is it a story? Are all story songs? I don't know. I have no idea. But stay curious, stay strong, don't forget to journal, and please take care of yourselves. Resist. Resist by maintaining sovereignty of the self. Resist by maintaining love of the self. Resist by maintaining fierce loyalty to love and pleasure. Resist with acts of radical kindness. Focus on the path to better times.
So I may